Now I would like to present our guest speaker for the day, Mr. Charles Sesi Paul, who has been kind enough to accept our invitation and join us for the session and talk on today's topic, how to plan a startup. Mr. Charles Sesi Paul is the founder and CEO of VoltusWave, a no-code app development platform. He started VoltusWave on a mission to be the IT backbone of businesses and make enterprise application development a breeze. Prior to VoltusWave, he was CEO at Cura Software and also worked as the vice president in Road. He has also held many key managerial roles at the Thomson Reuters and Virtusa. He was the founder of Galaxy Local, a Hyderabad-based online supermarket in 2011, and had a successful exit in 2013. Mr. Sesi attended many programs at Harvard Business School and holds an Executive General Management Program degree from IIM Bangalore and Bachelor of Technology from Regional Engineering College, Jalandhar. It is very often Mr. Charles Sesipal appears on top of candidate wish list, be it for any executive job, developing a new software, joining strategic boards, or coaching young developers or teams. Thank you, sir, for gracing us with your presence and taking out the precious time of yours to enlighten us today. The stage is yours, sir.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jay. So let me just share my screen. Let me know when you see my screen. Right. Are you able to see
Yes, sir.
me?
Yes, sir. It's visible.
All right, okay. Um, so I'll run some few slides, right?
Sure.
So um, okay. So thank you guys. Thank you for joining today, right? So I would actually run a few slides and answer some questions and see how this the exciting world of startup in enthusiasts you guys, right? So um, a lot of people like I was an engineer, right? So I was like a 1992, 96 batch engineer. I studied in REC Jalandhar. At that time, they used to call it REC Jalandhar, right? And it is now called on, I think, NIT, National Institute of Technology, right? So most of you guys are actually from IcfaiTech, I guess, right? So that's what Jay told me, saying, okay, it's the tech guys today. We did a similar, um, a similar webinar for MBA guys a couple of months back, and then
Yes, sir.
you know it's quite nice to actually interact with you guys. So try to spend some time with young folks like you, right, and see how I can actually help you guys in uncovering. So one of the most important things, probably what we will be uncovering today is like how do I actually develop startups? Um, how do you do this? And you know, uh, let's I'll give you a few techniques and we can actually go from there, right? So the most important thing you guys need to know is that, right? So when you start your career, right? So and what happens is when you start your career, you have no clue as to what is happening, right? So like the first thing every one of our parents tell us is, okay, most of the parents, I mean, until unless you're from a business background and your parents already are in business, right? So which ideally is not the case all the time, right? So they will actually say, hey, get a job, right? The first thing is to actually say, get a job, right, and make sure that you stand on your own feet, and that's mostly what they say, right? They don't tell you, like, if I really have to make a lot of money, how do I actually do this? What is the financial strategy I need to follow, right? And this is a framework for you to actually explain what uh, you know uh, the framework for understanding how to do actually financial strategy, right? In personally in your own life, right? So you're already you always will start as an employee, right? So employee can, I mean, not necessarily you should start as an employee, right? So if you have an employee, if you are an employee, you just have a job, somebody actually pays you some salary money at the end of the month, and you're happy about that, right? Now, now um, there are self-employed people, right? So in this case, what happens is you actually go and work for a company, and then they pay your salary. Self-employed people are like people like chartered accountants, people like doctors. They will actually sit in a clinic, right? Every day morning they go to the clinic, and they will actually cure some patients, and then they will actually get some money out of that by charging a fee for them, right? So it's like if you are an auditor, you'll actually go and become an auditor for a few companies, and they will pay you for doing an audit for their company, right? So that's like self-employed, right? Business owners is about other people actually work for you, right? And as an investor, money works for you, right? So it's very, very important to actually understand what is an employee, what is a business owner, what is a so we call it ESBI, right? So ESBI we call it cash flow quadrant. Now, you can make a lot of money by actually being an employee. You can make a lot of money by being a, self-employed guy, right? You can also make a lot of money as a business owner or an investor, right? Now, how do you the only difference is that the time you will have to actually go spend do things on your own, right? So your employee, you always have to go to the job, right? If you say I want to sit at home or I want to take a vacation, right, nobody's going to pay you, right? So the same with self-employed, right? So if you go for a becoming a self-employed guy, right, you can you're the only guy who's actually sitting. Maybe you can actually do become an auditor, or you're all tech guys, so you can actually become a consultant. Those kind of jobs are actually how we call it self-employed. And once you don't want to go to office, you don't make money, right? But in the case of business owners and in the case of investors, right, even if you don't go to office, right, there are other people to run the office, right? In here, like, your money is actually working for you, right? So you actually invested in a business, and those businesses are actually making money for you, so you don't need to actually go to office again, right? So whoever is actually on this side of this side of the platform, on the left side, you should actually try to move to the right side of the platform, right? Now, question is that if you are actually a business owner, where do you get started, right? Now, there are two types of you know businesses, right? So one is like a startup, right, and one is like a small business. Let's say I mean, I heard that there are a few people who are lawyers who are actually coming and joining, right? So four of you guys actually figured out that, okay, we want to actually start a law firm, right? And then they started a law firm, and they actually started getting some clients, and they're doing that. So that there's nothing different about that, right? Okay, that's just a small business, right? So you don't need to think too much. It's an established firm. You go get some cases to fight for, and then somebody actually pays you for per hour or whatever, right? So it's like slightly better than self-employment, but it's actually still a small business, right? Now, what is a startup, right? A startup is something you actually do out of the box, right? So you do something which is different than what is actually out there, right? Now, a lot of people confuse. Let's say, take the same example of the four lawyers coming together and starting a firm, right? instead of like just directly attending cases of customers, right? If they create a technology, right, wherein it will help other lawyers to actually become more successful by actually using some AI technology and helping them find more cases, case references and other things. So that now that is different, right? That is highly scalable, right? That is, it's possible to actually go and sell that particular product what you created to all the lawyers in the world, right? And if you're using AI, to actually help out the lawyers in in preparing their cases, right? That's very different, right? Now, what you have to think about is, how do I actually start a company and not just do what other people are doing. I mean, sometimes you always start somewhere, right? So sometimes you start it as a small business, but later on, if you're doing a recruitment company, right? So let's say you are doing recruitment, right? So you brought in like, okay, 4 or 5 guys who are actually your friends, and then you got some customers, and then you actually started hiring people for other companies, right? So if it's like a recruitment consultancy, that's just a small business, right? So there's nothing different about it. But if you create a technology where you actually help other companies hire easier, much faster, right? Like for example, Naukri.com, right? I mean, what did they do? They made it a very simple way of actually gathering all the people, and they actually created a marketplace where people actually can post their jobs, and uh, other people can apply for it. That kind of a technology, if you create, that's a startup. The same thing with LinkedIn, right? So LinkedIn actually has 3 or 4 use cases wherein either you actually use it for sales, or you use it for recruitment, you use it for your own profile and things like that, right? So, hopefully you understand the difference between what is a small business and a startup, right? Now, now there is a guy called Peter Thiel, right? So if you guys know this guy, PayPal, he was one of the founders of PayPal along with Elon Musk, right? He claims that he actually owns PayPal, and then later on he actually, joined hands with Elon Musk, who are actually a few blocks away, and they were doing a similar project. So they both merged, and but brilliant guys, right? So he actually wrote a book called Zero to One, right? And when your idea is 0 to 1, right, it is a novel idea, right? It's a new idea, right? So when we are actually saying it's a new idea, right, it's nobody else has done this previously, right? And that's, if you can actually find an idea like that, and that is terrific, right? So you actually have struck gold and at that particular point in time, right? And then like some people do take other ideas from other countries, and then let's say ClassPass, right? So ClassPass is like a model where in New York City, you have a lot of gyms, right? So you can actually buy class pass, and you can go to any gym for one day. And let's say you take a class pass for 30 days, and you actually can attend any gym, one session in each of the gyms for 30 days. Yeah, and you can go to any gym. It's not like, okay, if you sign up for Cult Fit, every day I have to go to Cult Fit, right? So you can go to any gym, and that was one of the business models which people in New York actually have started. Now a lot of guys are actually trying to emulate that kind of business in India, right? So that's like taking it to from one to n, right? So you take a existing idea, you actually go to a new location, and then you start actually ramping up that particular business. Nothing wrong with it, right? There is no problem in actually doing that kind of thing. It's just that um, you know you make a lot more money if you find something innovative, right? And when you do startups, you are more like uh, innovation is your friend, right? So the more you innovate, and it's startup is never one idea, right? It's never never one idea, right? So now you actually should be able to generate multiple ideas over a period of time, right? And usually each startup takes anywhere between 10, 15, 20 years, right? To actually establish. So it's not like a small duration you're talking about. Okay, I created a company, and sometimes you sell and get out, right? So sometimes like I created a e-commerce company in 2011. Within 2 years, I actually sold that business, and I came out of that because I did not like that business because there was like a lot of physical supply chain, and and I didn't have passion for that. The on the question of passion, right? l- Most important thing when you actually do a startup is that you need to have a lot of passion to what you should actually do, um, uh, what you like, right? I mean, if you're in the music industry, you want to do music videos, it's absolutely fine, right? You should have a lot of passion toward music, and you should actually do something very, very passionate, and you will discover your passion, right? So sometimes like I'm very passionate about software, right? So today I've been learning for last 20 years, and I still learn every day, right? So I mean, whether it's blockchain, whether it's AI, whether it's robotics, whether it is anything, right? So I'm very passionate technologist. So and when you do something like that, right? You don't feel time, and that's a good measure of how do you know what you are passionate about, right? So when you do certain things, you just don't know time, right? So and when you are actually doing that, right? So try to find something which you are actually really passionate about, because it's going to be a very, very long journey and tough journey, right? To be able to actually make a startup, right? Now the question is like, okay, what are you really selling, right? Now this is very important to understand, like what you're really selling, right? Now, is there is a product which your company, let's say make believe you are actually, the idea I've given, about making four lawyers coming together creating a technology product which will help other lawyers win cases, right? Now that is the product of the company, right? They are actually going and selling to all the customers, but you know there is another selling which is actually parallelly happening, which is actually the shares of the company, right? And in fact, as a startup owner, or like a startup co-founder or a founder, right, you are actually in fact selling the company than the product, right? So you are actually making a company which you will sell to make money, right? And a lot of people don't know that, right? A lot of people think that I need to make up a great product, and I will actually, but they will ignore this part, right? So they don't know what is valuation, right? I strongly recommend people to actually go and do an MBA, right? If you're not done an MBA, see, as a technology guy, right, you can always do startup, right? But a combination of technology and business administration is very powerful, because you need to understand how the business is run, what is the balance sheet, what's the P&L, what is valuation. You need to understand how this whole thing works, because otherwise what will happen is you create wealth, right? As a startup, the whole point is to actually create wealth, right? But then you'll not be able to capture that wealth, right? Like I always quote this Red Bus guys, right? Those guys actually created a simple ticket booking system for all the um, uh, long distance buses, right? But then they sold the company, and for 500 crore or something like that. The founders made only like 20-30 crores out of that 500 crores, right? Now, now is it enough? Maybe it's enough, right? But then you created a lot of wealth, but you are not able to capture any of that wealth, right? So it's very, very important to understand valuation, and I'll spend a minute to actually explain to you how valuation works, right? So valuation, let's say, right? So you is very simple, right? So a lot of people struggle to actually understand this, right? So let's say you have a, you know, right? Let's say you have like a 100-acre plot, right? So you think that this is like a 100-acre plot, right? So, and then you actually sold, you know, um, an acre of that whole plot, right? Let's say you sold this for 1 lakh rupees, right? Now what happens? Like, so here you have 99 acres left with you and you sold it for 1 acre, right? Now, how many lakhs do you own, right? So you actually own 99 lakhs, right? Now, the second acre, right, what you actually do, you sell it for, let's say, you know, 10 lakhs, right? Now, because you took the 1 lakh and then you actually, you know, improved the process of the company, you actually sowed some seeds and other things, and then their value is actually growing up. Now the second acre is actually sold at 10 lakhs. Now suddenly, you know, your earlier what you had was 99 lakhs, right? Now what happened to this one, right? Now this became 980 lakhs, right? Because now you own 98 acres, and then you know each acre is actually 10 lakhs, right? So that would be approximately, you know, 980 lakhs, right? So that's a good 9.8 crores out there, right? Now the third acre you actually sell it actually for, let's say, you know, maybe 30 lakhs, right? So you actually sold it for 30 lakhs. Sometimes we actually sell it for even 100 lakhs, right? Because you took the 10 lakhs, you actually cultivated more, and then the value of the company went up, and now each acre is actually 100 lakhs. So suddenly what happened, it's not just 980 lakhs. I mean, you now you own 97 lakhs, right? So 97 is like, okay, you know, 97 into 100, right? That would be, you know, 97 and 100, right? So that would be, you know, lakhs. Here it's 97 crores, right? So you understand how this whole thing actually works, right? So the dilution, right, is very important to understand. Now, I'll not spend much time on this. I'll actually probably, if you guys are interested in understanding valuation, how the game works and other things, I can actually do one more session, right? But in general, right, it's very important to understand that you are not actually just selling the product, you're actually selling the company, right? And then the valuation, this is how you actually keep increasing the valuation, and this is how you create wealth, right? You will never be able to make this kind of money in if you're an employee or if you're a self-employed, guys. The startups are the only vehicles in the entire investment class to actually give you the kind of returns what we are actually talking about, right? Now, your fund keeps decreasing, right? As a you know, founder, initially you'll own all 100%, then you'll actually get you know, you will sell off some part of that, but you know, you raised 700K, right? Now you own you know, so only 70%, but then you actually later on sold some more, and then you raised some more money. So as your percentage of the stake decreases, but your valuation actually of the company increases, right? So it's kind of, you know, confusing for a lot of people, and they don't understand how this whole thing works, right? So that's important to actually understand how you know, valuation works, and if you don't understand, don't do it, right? So I mean, while doing a product, I mean, doing a product itself is, you know, tough, but not understanding valuation means you are actually not be, nor you'll not be able to capture your whole you know, the wealth you created. You'll not be able to capture that kind of wealth, right? Now now what is the formula for startup, right? So when you created a product, and then you are able to actually you're able to actually get some customers, right? And when you actually do that, right, there's a book actually you should read by Eric Ries, right? He actually tells it brilliantly. And it's very important to actually understand what is the lifetime value of a particular customer, right? And what is your cost of customer acquisition? CSC is like customer cost of acquiring a customer, or customer acquisition cost, right? And your lifetime value minus cost of customer acquisition should be positive, right? So let me tell you an example, right? Uh, so let's say I started this e-commerce business, right? So when we started this e-commerce business, we started locally by supplying groceries, and it was like a big basket kind of a company, right? Okay, so wherein customers will actually call you, and then you'll actually get. So now, once you acquire a customer, say once you actually go and do a campaign, right? You actually acquired a customer, right? The customer will keep giving you orders for, let's say, 1 year, right? So that's like, and after that he's not interested in your service, so you'll actually go somewhere else, right? Now, when he actually does that, right, so over a period of 1 year, however much the lifetime he of that particular customer with your company, right, what is the value he actually contributed, right? So that is called a lifetime value, right? And the cost of customer acquisition is how much did I spend to actually get him as a customer, right? Did I do advertisement? Did I go do door-to-door campaigns? In this particular case, we actually did a door-to-door campaign. And at that time, 2011, Big Basket was not there. I mean, we were ahead of Big Basket. And people didn't know that you can actually order something on the web and we will actually deliver, right? It was a simple business model, right? We were learning, and we were actually positive, right? So if you, let's say, if your cost of customer acquisition is 100 rupees and your lifetime value is 1,000 rupees, then people will actually start investing in you, right? If your cost of customer acquisition is 10,000 rupees and if your lifetime value is 1,000 rupees, you don't have a business, right? So very important to actually understand that, okay, this is the formula for creating a startup, right? So your lifetime value of your customers should be much higher than your cost of customer acquisition, right? And the larger the gap it is, the larger, the higher the valuation you will actually get, right? So how do you do that, right? So how do you discover whatever the idea you have is actually working or not working? How do you do that, right? So there is like a customer development methodology which was actually given by Steve Blank, right? Steve Blank is a great guy, and Eric Ries is actually one of his students, and he created this discovery method. I mean, customer development methodology, wherein he says that don't try to create something which in sitting in a room, right? Go talk to customers, right? So you create something, right? You actually uncover a particular problem customers are facing. You actually create a solution to actually solve that problem, right? Then you actually create like a minimum viable product, right? A minimum viable product is you don't have time to do all the rings and bills, right? Make a minimum product and then start selling, right? And then you go to the customer and you actually ask saying, okay, is this what you really would buy, right? So see, a lot of customers will tell you that, okay, the product is good, but when you ask them to buy the product, they will not buy from you, right? You will be wondering what the heck has happened, right? So he's saying that they like the product, but then now they are saying that they don't want to buy the product. The moment you actually ask for money, they will say, okay, we don't want, right? I mean, I'll give you an example, right? We face this all the time, right? We created like a great solution for freight forwarders, and this guy, one of the customers in Dubai, they were actually giving a lot of requirements and blah blah blah, and we spent like 3 months, and then after that, like when we actually said, hey, look, it will cost you 50,000 rupees a month, right? So we will actually now start deploying it for you. And then they backed off, right? Then they backed off and then they said like, look, we don't want to you spend that 50,000. Now, either there is a product market fit mismatch, or they actually just were playing around with us. So what they're saying, what we are saying is that you need to actually go find a customer who has a problem, and you are just don't need to find only one customer. Go talk to 10 people or 20 people or 100 people, depending upon what kind of product you are actually doing, right? And then make sure that other customers are also having the same problem, and then you validate that piece by just going and showing your product to your customer. See, most of the time when you are actually creating a new product, right, so you might not have all the resources to actually go sell it, and customers might not buy from you, but they will actually give you good feedback, right? So some people will actually be able to give good feedback, and they will say, hey, look, we will actually buy if you actually meet this condition, right? And you should be able to validate that, and that has to happen when you actually reach out to customers, right? And now that you are actually coming out of the pandemic, right, customer validation has to happen. You need to go find out, you can actually do online calls. We do that all the time, right? So we whenever we create like a new product, right, we actually go talk to 20 customers minimum. Maybe let's say we are talking to freight forwarders. We will actually talk to some 10 freight forwarders in Mumbai, 10 freight forwarders in Chennai, 10 freight forwarders in Dubai, 10 freight forwarders in the US, right? So we will actually send them email saying, okay, hey, look, we actually developed this new product. Would you actually like to have a look at it? And then, give us some feedback. We are not trying to sell it to you, but, I'm just trying to validate whether, this product, whatever I made, does this make sense for you or not, right? So once you actually understand that, right, you then actually go and create like, a sales traction methodology, right? There are multiple channels through which you actually need to acquire customers, right? So whether you are doing cold calling, whether you're sending an email marketing, whether you're doing digital marketing on social media, depending upon what kind of traction channel, we call it traction channel, right? What kind of traction channel you need to actually, you need to validate your channel, right? Because see, one thing is to create a product, okay, which will solve a customer problem. Second thing is to validate whether the customers will actually pay for whatever you actually have developed. And the third thing is to actually find a channel through which you can actually reach these customers, right? For example, in our company, we actually, what we did was, we went and tried a lot of things. We tried to call initial. I mean, when I started the e-commerce business, we tried to call people. That didn't work, right? But then we said like, okay, let's go and distribute some free groceries to each flat, right? And then we will actually put like our detail on the brochure, whatever we are actually giving, and then we will actually give like a bunch of vegetables, and then we call it vegetable basket, and then we put that number, and then slowly started customers started calling us, right? That's a fantastic way of actually acquiring. So that that model, whatever we actually did, right, we didn't have budgets for actually splashing a big hoarding, splashing a lot of things. We went door to door. We took the permission of uh, the the apartment complex, and we went and actually did the campaign, right? So those campaigns were good traction channel for us, right? So you need to validate, like right now, in our case, right, so we actually sell this no code platform to CIOs and CTOs, right? And initially we tried a lot of digital marketing. We tried LinkedIn, it didn't work. I mean, I sent like 1,000 invites to all the CIOs and CTOs, and nobody accepted it, right? Nobody was responding to it. We were like very surprised. We thought like LinkedIn was sure shot way of actually getting customers, but that was not the traction channel we actually got, right? So then we went and said, okay, look, why don't we start cold calling, right? And then we actually started cold calling, and then people started responding, right? Saying, okay, look, we have a digitization platform. Do you want to actually have a look at it? And then they started giving appointments, and then then you immediately start ramping up that entire sales channel, right? So once you actually ramp up the sales channel, right, then in the middle you have to actually make sure that you have runway, right? You need to make raise investment, right? You have to tell your idea, you have to talk about the market. I mean, when people come to me and say, okay, three or four people started a BPO company, wherein they were actually doing some customer support for a few guys, and they did not actually, they said like, we want to raise money. I said, guys, look, you want to raise money, that's good, right? But then tell me about your business plan. How is like the growth happening, right? What is your current valuation? Well, if I give you like, okay, 1 crore rupees, then what would be your future valuation? How much money are you looking for? What are you actually going to do? And this whole fundraising is like an entire different thing, right? So one thing is to get your idea validated. Next to is to understand that there is a certain market for it, right? We call it target addressable market, right? And the third thing is to actually understand how to actually get your customers, and through which traction channel you are actually able to get the customers. Are you going to write blogs? Are you going to do digital marketing? Are you going to do email marketing? Are you going to do like events, right? Are you going to do door to door, whatever, right? So the traction channel is very important, and then you actually start building your company, right? So hopefully that actually gives you an overview of how to actually build a company, right? So there are some other useful tools like to communicate, in one page. How do you actually show what is your business model, right? So business model is like, people don't understand what is business model, right? So when we say business model, like, okay, nobody has a clue what business model is, right? Business model is like how you make money, right? So let's say, initially Google, what it did was like, Google went to enterprises and said, look, you have a lot of documents, we can actually search all those documents, and if somebody wants to figure out a particular document, we can actually uh, you can use our engine and use it, right? Now, that didn't fly, right? They were not successful initially, right? Later on, when they went and when they said like, okay, let's start using a map reduce algorithm, and then we want to actually start doing work for a lot of on the internet, right? And then they said like, okay, they created like a marketplace where advertisers and advertisers compete for the screen space, and they charge for that. That is the way you charge a customer, is called a business model, right? So go read up a little bit on Lean Canvas, and there is a lot of information about Lean Canvas, right? You should actually, you should be able to actually understand what is the problem you are actually trying to solve. Are there existing products? How is your product different from what you are actually your competitors or existing alternatives are there, right? Then you actually need to be able to segment your customers, right? See, for example, there are lots of kinds of segments. How do you segment customers, right? Now, people who buy, if you look at BMW, right? So BMW or Merc or any of these cars, right? They try to actually capture the top 3% of the entire car market in hydro. I mean, wherever they actually play, there is a market, and then they will actually try to be on the top 3%. And that is like very elite, right? So, and then there are like Ferraris who are actually even not even 1% of the market, probably by point, not 1%, and they are happy with that kind of market segment, right? Then there are like mid market, like you have this Skodas and your Honda cities, and that's a different market. And then you have actually a different segment of people who will actually buy much more cheaper cars, but more economical cars, like, okay, Maruti, let's say Maruti 800, or Nano, and some of these cars, Nano, of course, it failed. Like there's a lot. See, you need to actually do an MBA after your engineering, right? So my suggestion is that if you guys are tech guys, right, while you're working on your problem, right, try to either do a part-time or a full-time. Nowadays, there is a lot of online MBAs which are actually being floated around. But ICFAI itself is like a fantastic business school. You should actually go and do your MBA after your engineering, right? And then work for some time just to understand how the whole thing works actually. Is the more you work, the better it gets actually, right? And then finally, you can actually, once you actually understand the entire picture, get some co-founders and don't try to do the business alone, right? Very, very tiring, right? So you need people who will actually you will be able to lean on, your friends, who can actually be along with you, right, for the long term and equally passionate about starting a startup. Very important to find, co-founders who actually are going to work along with you, right? And then, you also need to find funding for your startup, whether it is like, okay, there are multiple rounds of funding, seed funding, Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D, right? So you need to do a lot of research around that and see how people are actually raising money. How do you write your pitch decks, right? How do you approach these investors, right? And you need to understand valuation, right? So if you don't understand valuation, you are in trouble, right? So they will actually start they can actually take you for a ride, right? So because you might have a great idea. I mean, I was talking to one of the IcfaiTech guys when I was in IcFai, probably 2019, I guess. A guy who had brilliant ideas. I mean, he wanted to actually do something for in drone technology for some defense applications, right? Brilliant technology. I mean, brilliant idea, but he had no clue around the entire business and other things, right? So while you need to know both, right? You need to know how the ideas work, and you also need to know how the business works, right? A combination of this is actually what will make you successful, right? So I'll stop here, right? I think I gave you enough for today, right? So I would actually open it up for questions and see how the whole thing works, right? So uh, should we create a Jay? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So, any questions? I actually will, I want
Yes,
to.
sir. We have received a few questions. Uh, Let me ask them, sir. Just give a minute. So the talk was really good, sir.
I'm not able
That
to see the
MBA
question
and BTech.
panel. Yeah. Is that is the panel different?
I think, sir, shall I ask it? Is it okay, sir?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. So, sir, yes. So the first question is, sir, uh, according to you, which is more important, your idea or your execution of the idea, and why so?
Um. I think both are important, right? Like that's what you should actually understand. It's not just the idea or the execution. It's like you have a great idea. What good does it do if you don't know how to execute it, right? You really need to know how to execute it, and all these different areas, whatever you are doing. You used to actually take an idea from just an idea stage to a company stage, and you need to execute it. So both are important. And if you execute on the wrong idea, you're not going to go anywhere, right? You need to find the right idea, you need to find the right people to execute it, and you need to execute it for the long term, right? So those are all important actually.
Okay, sir. Yes. So the next question is, uh, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or formula to become a successful entrepreneur?
Right. Um, so what's the question? Say, repeat it again.
Do you believe, uh, do you believe there is some sort of pattern or a formula of to become a successful entrepreneur?
I think um, there should be a reasonable amount of um, uh, first thing is to actually have passion and ambition to actually make money, right? So not that you really actually work for money, but you need to actually have the passion to do something different, and you need to have the passion to change the world for the better, right? In our case,
Yes, sir.
let's say, we did this with this platform where there is no more coding required to actually create
Yes, sir.
an
Yes.
app, right? So it's a no-code app, right? So what we said is that's not what we are actually trying to do. We are saying that we will actually make the life of enterprise simpler to actually create apps for their company, right? So it's very, very important to understand that you need to have the passion, and you need to actually have the ambition and think right. Like for example, Tesla, right? So if Elon Musk says that if you want to move people, but don't try to actually pollute the environment with all the fossil fuels and other things. So I will actually have a better way of actually creating electric vehicles, and then you have a lot of passion. Now there is a lot of money they make along the way, but that's not the prime motive. The prime motive. So you should have a motive. You should actually have the passion. You should actually have the skill to execute it, and and a little bit of luck, and I think you should take off.
Yes, sir. So, sir, one more question from the same guy. Sir, according to you, what are the topmost three advices that you would give to a college graduate who want to become entrepreneur?
Right. So, like I was saying, right. So, first thing is you need to actually think about being an entrepreneur, right? So, I mean, I remember myself actually thinking, saying, okay, if I have 50,000 rupees, I will actually start a company, right? If I have, I wanted to do some motor winding work and start a business, right? So, I mean, entrepreneur is like, okay, we don't understand entrepreneurship initially, but sometimes most of the time you will actually try to actually say first thing is you need to actually be a businessman, right? And to be able to do the businessman become a businessman, right, you need to be able to understand how you do business, right? So the second thing what I would actually think is to actually go do an MBA structured way, right? I mean, some people just learn, right? I mean, you have today YouTube, you have Google, there's so much of content which is available, but learning it in a structured way is much better than learning it unstructured way, right? So it's better that way. Initially, I tried a lot to actually learn on my own about business and about everything, right? Then later on I figured out that it's better to do a course, right? And I went to IIM Bangalore and then did a executive MBA course, and that really changes your way of, especially the engineering guys, right? So uh, once you do an MBA, your way of thinking actually entirely changes, right? So very, very important to do an MBA. The third thing is to actually find friends who actually will work with you on your idea. You need to be able to sell your idea and get co-founders who can actually work along with you to actually make a successful successful company. You might fail. Don't lose hope, right? That's okay, right? Nobody actually, I did like 3 or 4 ventures before I actually started a successful business, right? I mean, I did a service apartment business, I did a, e-commerce business, and I did a few other businesses before we, I did a HR consultancy, right? And I failed, right? Like, not that, okay, day one you'll actually become super successful. Some people become super successful, right? Like, for example, that guy who actually started Oyo, he started at the age of 18, right? And he did not even complete his graduation when he actually started that business. So some people are lucky. I mean, they learn fast and then they do it fast, right? But I feel that if you start young, right, the the last advice I have is, see, if you start young, right, it's much easier as you grow older to actually start a company. It becomes like, because if you get married, you have 2 kids, I mean, you need to actually have a stable income before you actually go and start a company. Because once you start a company, think that you'll not get any income for the next 3 to 4 years, right? And you need to plan for that kind of income break, which most people don't actually think about it, right? So it's very, very important to understand that you need to be able to um, think for your plan for like a 3 to 4 years of stable, I mean, a life without your income, right? So that's very important.
Great, sir. Good. So the next one is kind of a personal question, sir. It's like, when you first started working, did you foresee that this is where you would be?
Um, Not really. I mean, I always used to say that, okay, I like software, so I will be a software engineer, right? And then I always liked business, and then I used to say I want to be a businessman, right? And then I want to be a software businessman, and then see, you can start a services company, right? Nobody stops you from doing a software services company. There are like hundreds of software companies around here, and they don't do any innovation and all of that, right? They just actually sell people's hours, and they make money. They make good money. Don't underestimate that. They make fantastic money, right? Okay, crores and crores of rupees, right? So, but you need to actually have a passion when you're an entrepreneur. You want to actually change the world for in a certain way, and you want to write a product. You want to put your ideas into a product, and then change the way life works, right? So that's very important. So when you dream of things like that, eventually you will plan for it, and then you'll take the plunge, right? Sometimes you fail. I mean, you should not lose confidence, because even though you fail, right, you again gather some energy. After some time, you try it again, right? So that's how you actually keep doing, and 2 or 3 attempts, and then I think you'll be successful. Sometimes people are successful in the first attempt, sometimes in the second, sometimes in the third. Right. I'm a very slow learner, so I actually took some time, but we gradually fixed it actually.
Sure, sir. So, sir, since the time is ending up, let me wrap it up with one more last question, sir. So, sir,
Correct.
what is your favorite aspect of being an entrepreneur?
Well, it's the favorite thing is like, you know, um, there is nobody else who will actually tell you what to do, right? You're your own boss, right? I mean, there is nothing, you know, I work like hell, right? I mean, I work Saturday, Sunday. Last 3, 4 years, I've been working almost all 7 days a week, almost 12 hours. Nobody tells me anything, right? So nobody says, okay, I need this, I need that, or they come and ask me, right, saying, I need this help on this presentation, or can you? Sometimes customers ask us what to do. Sometimes partners ask us what to do. But nobody, I can create my own schedule, right? I don't need to be in the office at 9 o'clock. Most likely, I end up actually start working at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's a different story. But then nobody. I used to hate when I used to work for other companies, saying you have to be in the office by 10 o'clock. There's a policy and blah blah blah, right? So not working on somebody else's schedule is very painful, right? But if you are an entrepreneur and you're your own boss, right? So you go to office whenever you like, you work whenever you like, right? Obviously, there is some overlap with other people, right? So, but being your own boss is like the best thing.
Yes, sir. I agree to
And,
that.
and it gives you a ton
So,
of money as well, right? Don't forget the money, right? End
yes,
of the day,
sir.
you
Yes,
actually make like a ton of money, right? So that's very, very important, actually.
sure. Yes, sir. So, yes, that's it with the Q&A session, sir. There are like two and three more questions. I'll be mailing them to you, sir. You could answer if you can get a free time, sir.
Sure, sure.
Yes,
I can do that actually.
sure.
So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
thank you very
So,
much
yes, sir. So,
for your time.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
We thank you, sir, for all your efforts in developing modern technology and being an inspiration for many of us. And also, thank you for taking out the time from your busy schedule and enlightening us with your words of wisdom, sir.
Right, right. Yeah. So
Yes, sir.
hopefully some of you guys will do startups and then will be very, very successful. So wish you
Yes,
all
sir.
a
Hope
very,
so.
very successful startup life, right? And then take a truckload of money home, make everybody proud, make India proud, right? So thank you so
Yes,
much,
sir.
Jay, and
Yes, sir.
really appreciate all the
Thank you
work.
so much, sir. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Right. Take care, right? Then,
Yeah,
right.
sure, sir. Yes, sir. We would also like to thank all the students present over here for joining us and making IcfaiTech Entrepreneurship Club's second webinar a successful one. Thank you, everybody, for being a great audience. Looking forward to many more sessions like this. Have a great day.